wearing linen tunics and refusing to call things by their actual names. Dexter, Serafina whispered, stroking her belly as if it were a crystal ball. The vibration is clear. Our child shall be called Kananda. Dexter, a man whose brain usually processed information at the speed of a dial-up modem, nodded enthusiastically. Kananda. It sounds like a country, or a brand of high-end Canadian butter. It means knowledge and perception in the ancient dialect of the stars. Serafina corrected. The trouble began when Penelope, Silas's eldest daughter, overheard the conversation. Penelope, a woman who treated gossip like a professional sport, immediately ran to her mother, Martha. "Mom, they're naming the baby after a Canadian butter brand," Penelope gasped. By the time the news reached Silas, the name had mutated through the family telephone line from Kananda to Canada to eventually Balthazar, the butter prince. "Balthazar?" Silas roared, waving a spatula that looked like a medieval weapon. "No grandson of mine will be named after a Magi or a dairy product. He will be Silas Jr., or at the very least, Porkchop Silas." The conflict between the baker's traditionalism and Serafina's New Age enlightenment became a war of attrition. At a family dinner, intended to announce the name, Silas had already prepared a banner that read, "Welcome little Silas, the meat hire." When Serafina walked in with a bowl of kale and announced the vibrational name of Kananda, Silas nearly choked on a cocktail onion. "Kananda?" Silas sputtered. "Sounds like a sneeze. Is that Sanskrit for, 'I don't want my grandfather to love me'?" Chapter 3. The Return of the Julian. While the bakers fought over names, the Vances were dealing with a ghost. Julian, the ex-fiancé of Arthur's daughter, Lily, had reappeared in Willow Heights. Lily was now happily married to Barnaby, a man whose primary personality trait was being very nice and easily startled. Julian was everything Barnaby was not. A world-traveling chef with hair that looked like it was permanently wind-swept by a Mediterranean breeze. He didn't just walk into a room. He materialized in a cloud of charisma and expensive cologne. Julian arrived at the Vance estate with a peace offering a salad that contained ingredients Barnaby couldn't even pronounce. "Julian," Lily stammered, her face turning the color of a ripe radish. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Brussels, or somewhere with cobblestones." "I missed the light in Willow Heights, Lily," Julian purred, completely ignoring the fact that Barnaby was standing 2 feet away, clutching a box of generic crackers. "And I heard you were domestic." Barnaby's paranoia reached fever pitch. He began shadowing Lily like a low-budget private investigator. Every time Julian mentioned the old days, Barnaby would loudly interject with facts about their mortgage or the efficiency of their new dishwasher. The tension culminated at a garden party where Julian offered to cook the perfect omelette. Barnaby, desperate to prove his masculinity, attempted to flip a pancake and ended up launching it into Eleanor's thumb sculpture. "See?" Barnaby cried, pointing at the sticky mess. "It's a metaphor for our marriage. Solid, adhesive, full of flour." Chapter 4. The Ashtastrophe of Aunt Gertrude. The peak of the absurdity, however, came from the sky, or rather, from Australia, via DHL. Silas received a package containing an ornate, heavy ceramic urn. It was the remains of Aunt Gertrude, the family's eccentric matriarch, who had spent the last 40 years in Melbourne. Her final wish was to be scattered in the pure waters of the homeland. The urn was placed on the mantelpiece, where it became a focal point of Silas's mourning. He spoke to it. He offered it beer. He treated it with more respect than he treated Dexter. Then came the great cleaning. Martha, in a fit of domestic frenzy, decided the kitchen needed a deep scrub. She spotted the urn, which Eleanor Vance had mistakenly identified as a postmodern salt shaker, during a brief, forced visit, and moved it to the counter. Penelope, looking for scouring powder to clean a burnt pot, saw the lid of the urn. In her defense, the ash inside was grey and gritty. "This is weirdly fine powder," Penelope muttered, shaking a healthy portion of Aunt Gertrude into a pot of boiling water and vinegar. The scream that erupted when Silas found Penelope scrubbing the stove with his favorite aunt could be heard 3 blocks away. "You're exfoliating the range with Gertrude," Silas wailed. "She was a woman of dignity. Now she's a grease remover." In a desperate, panicked attempt to fix the situation, Dexter and Barnaby, who had been pulled into the chaos, tried to rescue the ashes. This involved a vacuum cleaner, a coffee filter, and a series of mistakes that ended with Aunt Gertrude being partially mixed with Dexter's organic protein powder. The family spent the next 3 hours trying to separate Aunt Gertrude from the chocolate-flavored whey. "Is this Auntie or the Dutch cocoa?" Dexter asked, peering through a magnifying glass. "Just put it all back in the jar," Silas hissed. "If she's 10% chocolate, she'll just be a sweeter ghost." Chapter 5. The Grand Reconciliation of Madness. The threads of these ridiculous lives finally knotted together at the Vance Baker Summer Gala, a charity event Eleanor Vance had organized to showcase her sculpture, The Silence of the Lambs, which was actually just a marble box with a hole in it. The setting was the Vance's manicured lawn. Julian was there, trying to seduce Lily with a truffle. Barnaby was there, wearing a tuxedo that was 2 sizes too small and watching Julian like a hawk. Silas was there, secretly carrying the urn of Aunt Gertrude, now 20%, Nesquik, to fulfill her final wish in the Vance's decorative fountain. Eleanor stood on the podium. "Art," she proclaimed, "is the bridge between the chaos of the Bakers and the refinement of the Vances." Just as she was about to unveil her masterpiece, the neighbor's pool demolition team hit a gas line. The ground shook. Eleanor's thumb sculpture toppled over, crushing Julian's tray of truffles. Barnaby, in a moment of unexpected heroism, tackled Lily to the ground. "I've got you, Lily. Julian might have truffles, but I have a low center of gravity." Meanwhile, Silas, startled by the explosion, tripped. The urn of Aunt Gertrude flew through the air like a misguided football, landing squarely in the Vance's automated fountain. The fountain, programmed to spray in time with Mozart, began shooting Aunt Gertrude into the air. Because of the chocolate powder and the cleaning vinegar Penelope had used, the water began to foam and turn a murky, cocoa brown. "Look," Serafina cried, pointing at the brown fountain. "It's a sign. Aunt Gertrude has become a chocolate cloud of enlightenment." "She's a latte," Silas cried, falling to his knees. "My aunt is a public beverage." The gala descended into total anarchy. Julian, covered in marble dust and chocolate foam, decided that Willow Heights was too authentic for him and promptly announced his return to Europe. Penelope began live-streaming the fountain, gaining 50,000 followers in 10 minutes for Gothic water features. Dexter and Serafina stood in the middle of the mess. "You know, Dexter," Serafina said, "maybe we should name the baby something simple, like Gertrude." Silas looked up from the fountain, his face covered in chocolate-flavored ash. Arthur Vance looked at the wreckage of his lawn, at the foaming brown fountain, and at the Bakers and Vances finally laughing together at the sheer, unadulterated absurdity of it all. He poured himself a glass of wine. "Eleanor," he said, handing her a glass, "I think you've finally done it. You've created the ultimate new reality." Eleanor smiled, adjusted her pearls, and watched Aunt Gertrude's bubbles sparkle in the moonlight. "It's not art, Arthur. It's family. And unfortunately, it's a series that's been renewed for another season." Epilogue: The Aftermath. A week later, Willow Heights was quiet. The thumb was being used as a bird bath. Julian was a distant memory. Julian's salad, however, remained in the Vance's fridge, a testament to ingredients that never truly die. Silas Baker sat at his grill, flipping a burger, with a new sense of peace. Aunt Gertrude was mostly in the fountain, but a small part of her remained in the urn on the mantel. The part that was definitely chocolate powder. "Well, Silas Jr., Gertrude," Silas whispered to the urn, "you always did have a sweet tooth." And in the distance, Eleanor Vance could be heard starting a new project. A chainsaw buzzed to life. The cycle of chaos began anew. The Maplewood Manor Meltdown, a novel of family chaos, artistic crisis, and accidental seasoning. Prologue. The calm before the storm. In the rolling